The call came in at 3:47 a.m. on a Wednesday, and I need to say up front, I answered it wrong. Not wrong like I made a technical error. Wrong like I responded to it the way you'd respond to a person, and I don't think it was a person. I'm getting ahead of myself, but not by much. I'd been a 911 dispatcher for the city of Bakersfield, California for 11 years, Kern County Communications Center, graveyard shift, Wednesday through Sunday. If you've ever called 911 in the southern Central Valley between midnight and 6 a.m., there's roughly a 1 in 9 chance I was the voice on the other end. I say that because I want you to understand something. I've taken calls from people who were dying. I've listened to a woman describe her husband's chest wound while I heard him stop breathing in the background. I have talked a 16-year-old through barricading a bedroom door while someone broke through the front of her house. I stayed on the line with a man pinned in his truck on Highway 58 for 41 minutes, until fire got to him, and I was still on the line when they told me he'd been dead for at least the last 20 of those minutes, and I'd been talking to nobody. None of it, unsettled me the way this one call did, and the reason isn't what you'd think. It's not because something supernatural happened. I still don't know if it did. It's because of what I learned about a real, specific thing that happened in 1987, and because 2 living people confirmed parts of it that they should not have been able to confirm if the call was a hoax. That's what I can't get past. Let me describe how the system works, because it matters. When a 911 call comes in, our CAD system, computer-aided dispatch, automatically pulls the address associated with the originating phone line. If it's a landline, you get an exact address. If it's a cell phone, you get GPS coordinates with varying accuracy, plus the cell tower it pinged. Either way, something populates on screen before I even pick up. The call on March 12th came in and the CAD entry populated with a landline address, 1414 1214 1T Street, Bakersfield, CA 904. That address meant nothing to me at the time. It was just an address. A residential street in the Oleander Sunset neighborhood south of the river. I clicked into the call, 911, what's your emergency? Nothing for about 2 seconds. Then a woman's voice. There's smoke. I think there's smoke coming from under the door. Her voice was strained but controlled, not screaming, not panicking. The kind of voice you hear from someone who's been awake for a while already and is trying to make a rational decision about whether this is real. Okay, ma'am, I need you to stay on the line with me. Can you tell me where in the house you are right now? I'm in the back bedroom. Upstairs. Is anyone else in the house with you? A pause. Then, my daughter's in the next room. She's sleeping. How old is your daughter? She's 4. Okay. I need you to listen carefully. Do not open the bedroom door. Can you feel the door? Is it warm to the touch? I already touched it. It's hot. I dispatched fire immediately. Station 4 covers that part of Oleander. I had a unit rolling within maybe 40 seconds. Ma'am, I've got fire on the way. Can you get to a window? The window's painted shut. I've tried. Is there anything in the room you can use to break it? A lamp? A chair? I tried the chair. The glass cracked, but it didn't go through. There's something over it, on the outside. I think there's something nailed over the window. I want to stop here and explain something about how I process calls. When someone tells me something that doesn't make sense, my training kicks in. I don't question it. I don't pause. I log it mentally and keep moving because my job is to keep the caller doing things that increase their survival. I can sort out contradictions later. But that detail, something nailed over the window from the outside, I felt it land. Okay, help is on the way. Is there a closet in the room? A bathroom? There's a closet. Any access to the attic from the closet? Some houses have a panel. No, I already looked. This woman had already done everything. That was the thing that started bothering me while I was still on the call. She wasn't calling me in a panic hoping I'd walk her through survival steps. She'd already tried the door, already tried the window, already checked the closet. She was calling me because she'd exhausted her options and was telling me what she'd found, and what she'd found was that someone had sealed them in. Ma'am, can you tell me your name? Karen. Karen, fire is about 4 minutes away. I need you to take any fabric, towels, clothes, sheets, and push them against the bottom of the door. Can you do that? I already did. I used the sheets. Good. That's good, Karen. Now I need you to stay as low to the floor as you can. I know. I'm on the floor. Is the smoke getting into the room? I can smell it. I can't see it yet. Okay. That means the seal is holding for now. You doing everything right. I heard her exhale. Not relief, not a sigh. More like the sound someone makes when they're preparing for something they know is coming. Can you get to your daughter? Is the wall between your rooms solid? Or is there, I can hear her. She's not awake yet. I don't know if I should wake her up. That line hit me somewhere deep. There's a calculation in that sentence. The calculation of a mother deciding whether her 4-year-old should be awake for what might be the last few minutes of their lives. I've heard a lot of things on this job. That particular sentence is one I can still hear in her exact voice if I close my eyes. Karen, if there's any way to get to her, it would be better to have her with you. But do not go into the hallway. There's no way. The wall is solid. I can hear her through it, but I can't reach her. At this point, my supervisor, Denise Carver, rolled her chair over. She'd been monitoring the call. She didn't say anything, just looked at my screen. I saw her eyes go to the address, and she frowned. It wasn't a confusion frown. It was something else. Recognition, maybe. She pulled out her phone and started typing something. I didn't have time to ask. Karen, fire should be there in about 2 minutes. Can you hear any sirens? Silence. Karen, no. Pah. I can't hear anything outside. I've been listening. There's no traffic. There's nothing. Okay, sometimes the sound doesn't travel well depending on... There's never anything. There's never any sound from outside this house. I want you to sit with that sentence for a moment, because I didn't sit with it at the time. I processed it the way I process everything. Log it, keep moving. But when I listened to the recording later, that sentence is where the hair stood up on my arms. There's never any sound from outside this house. Not tonight. Not right now. Never. Karen, I'm going to stay with you until fire arrives. Can you tell me? How did the fire start? Do you know? He started it. Who started it, Karen? Glen. Is Glen in the house? He's downstairs. He nailed the boards and then he went downstairs. My heart rate didn't change. My voice didn't shift. 11 years. But I pulled up a second screen and flagged the call for law enforcement dispatch. Priority. When a fire is set intentionally and the suspect is on scene, that changes the entire response protocol. Karen, are you saying someone intentionally set this fire and has prevented you from leaving? He nailed the windows shut last week. I didn't know why. I thought he was... I don't know what I thought. And Glen is this your husband? A family member? My husband. Is he still in the house? I don't know. He was downstairs when I smelled the smoke. I heard him down there. Karen, law enforcement is being dispatched along with fire, okay? You're doing great. Just stay low, keep the towels against the door. I looked at Denise. She was staring at her phone with an expression I had never seen on her face before. She mouthed something to me, but I couldn't read it. Karen, I'm going to ask you something, and I need you to answer honestly. Has Glen been violent before? Are there weapons in the house? He has a rifle. I don't know if he has it now. Okay. I've noted that for the responding officers. My radio crackled. Engine 4 reporting en route. 2 minutes out. I relayed the arson and possible armed suspect information. The shift in the firefighter's voice was immediate. That changes approach, positions, everything. Then Denise grabbed my arm, hard enough that I almost broke protocol and turned away from my mic. She held her phone in front of my face. On the screen was a Bakersfield, California news article, archived. The headline read, Asterisk, man kills wife, daughter in Oleander Street house fire, found dead at scene. The date on the article was November 9, 1987. The address in the article was 1414 Oleander Street. I looked at the article. I looked at Denise. I looked at my screen where the call was still active, where a woman named Karen was breathing on the floor of a room that, according to this article, had burned to this framing nearly 40 years ago. I did not hang up. I need to make that very clear. Whatever you think about what was happening, I need you to understand. There was a voice on my line. A woman's voice. She was afraid. She had a child in the next room. My job is to stay on the line. That is the one unbreakable rule. You do not hang up on someone who is in danger, and I could not prove she wasn't. Karen, I'm still here. Fire is very close now. Okay. Can you still hear your daughter? She's humming. She does that in her sleep. She hums. Denise was writing on a notepad and sliding it to me. Asterisk. The house is gone. It burned in '87. There's nothing at that address. There's an empty lot. Asterisk. I read it. I looked at the CAD screen. The address was still populated. The line was still active. Call duration, 6 minutes, 42 seconds. I made a decision. I don't know if it was the right one, but I made it because of the humming daughter, and because of the mother's voice, and because whatever this was, I could not be the person who hung up. Karen, help is almost there, okay? I need to ask you something. What's today's date? A long pause. What? Can you tell me what today's date is? Why are you asking me that? I just need to confirm some information for the responding units. It's November 8th. And the year, Karen? Nothing for 5 seconds. Then quieter. Why would you ask me what year it is? It's just for our records. It's 1987. Why are you asking me what year it is? What's wrong? I swear to you, I could hear the smoke in her voice by this point. Not metaphorically. Her voice had a rasp to it that wasn't there at the start of the call. She was breathing harder. The situation in the room, wherever that room was getting worse. Nothing's wrong, Karen. I'm just confirming. Fire is almost there. You sound different. I'm right here. No? You sound like you're far away. Like the phone is different. I'm on a clear line, Karen. I can hear you perfectly. What kind of phone are you using? I'm at the dispatch center. Your voice sounds wrong. What year is it for you? I didn't answer. I should have kept the protocol going. I should have redirected. But she asked me the exact question I had just asked her, and the precision of it locked me up for a moment. Karen, oh God, the smoke is coming in. Karen, get as low as you can. Put your face against the floor. I can't see. It's coming onto the door. The sheets aren't. Karen, stay low. Breathe through the fabric. Use a shirt, anything. My daughter, I need to get to my daughter. Karen, do not open that door. Do you hear me? Do not open it. She's going to wake up. She's going to be scared, and I'm not there, Karen. The firefighters will get to her. They're coming right now. No one's coming. She said it flat, not screaming, not desperate, flat, like a fact she had always known and was just now choosing to say out loud. No one came last time either. My entire body went cold. I mean, physiologically, I felt the temperature in my hands drop, because last time should not have meant anything. If this was November 8th, 1987, there was no last time. This was the first and only time. The fire that killed the family at 1414 Oleander happened once. Unless it didn't. Karen, what do you mean last time? I don't want to do this again. Do what again? Karen, talk to me. Every time I call, you tell me help is coming, and then the fire gets in, and then I wake up and it's the same night. It's always the same night. I looked at Denise. She had both hands over her mouth. How many times have you called, Karen? I don't know. I don't know anymore. I used to count. I think I stopped counting after, I don't know, a lot. And every time the same thing. I smell the smoke. I check the door. It's hot. The windows are nailed. I call. Someone answers. They tell me help is coming. The smoke gets in. And then I'm back in the bed. And then I smell the smoke. I am a 911 dispatcher. I am trained for psychotic breaks. I am trained for callers who are disoriented, who are on substances, who believe things that aren't happening. I know those calls. They have a texture. The voice wanders, contradicts itself, loses and regains coherence in specific ways. Karen's voice was the most lucid, most coherent voice I had heard on a call in months. She wasn't confused, she was exhausted. There is a difference so vast between those two things that I felt it like a physical gap in the room. Karen, I hear you. I hear what you're telling me. No, you hear it, but then the line dies. And then I'm back at the beginning. You won't remember this. I'm recording. This call is recorded. A pause. It's... What? Every 911 call is automatically recorded. Whatever you tell me, it's being preserved. Do you understand? She made a sound. It wasn't a word. It was the kind of sound someone makes when they've been holding something for a very long time, and the structural support just shifted slightly. Not enough to let go. Just enough to feel the weight differently. You're recording this. Yes. So if I tell you things about the house, about Glen, about what happened before the fire, you'll have it. Yes. Even if the line cuts. Yes. Even if you forget. The recording won't forget, Karen. Denise was shaking her head at me. She was right to shake her head. I was off protocol so far that I couldn't even see protocol from where I was standing. I was having a conversation about memory and repetition with a caller from an address that had been an empty lot since the Reagan administration. But the voice was real, and the recording was real, and I was not going to hang up. Tell me about Glen, Karen. And she did. For the next 12 minutes, Karen talked. She talked about Glen Merriweather. She said his full name, Glen Robert Merriweather. She said they'd been married in 1982, that he'd been a mechanic at a shop on Union Avenue, that the first time he hit her was in 1984, 3 months after their daughter Lily was born, that it got worse after he lost the job, that she'd gone to her sister Donna's house in Wasco twice, and both times he'd driven up there and convinced her to come back, but the last time he'd said he'd kill her if she left again, and she believed him because he described how he'd do it, and it was specific. She told me he'd started nailing the windows in October, one by one. She'd asked about it, and he said it was for insulation. She told me she believed it because believing it was easier. She told me the smoke started at around 3 in the morning, and that she'd been awake because she was always awake, because she couldn't sleep in the same house as him anymore without staying alert. She told me she'd called 911 before the fire, twice earlier that year, and both times the responding officer had talked to Glen on the porch and left. She said the officer's name was Russ. She didn't know his last name. She said the second time Russ told her that domestic situations were difficult, but that Glen seemed like a reasonable man and maybe they could work it out. She told me she'd written a letter to her sister in September describing everything and asking Donna to take Lily if anything happened to her. She said she hid it in a cookbook in the kitchen. She said she didn't know if it survived the fire. She said all of this steadily, clearly, and without self-pity. The smoke was getting worse. I could hear it in her breathing, in the way she paused to cough and then keep going, determined to get the information out while the line held. At minute 18, my Engine 4 crew radioed in. Dispatch. We're on scene at 1414 Oleander. There's nothing here. It's a vacant lot. There's a foundation. That's it. I acknowledged the radio. Karen heard it through my headset bleed. They're there? They're at the address, Karen. But there's nothing there for them. No, because it already happened. Yes. Then why can I still smell the smoke? I didn't have an answer. I didn't try to produce one. The silence between us lasted maybe 4 seconds, but it was the most loaded silence I've experienced on a 911 line. 2 people, if she was a person, and I believe she was, on opposite sides of something that shouldn't have been crossable, holding a telephone line that bridged a gap of 38 years. Karen, is there anything else you want on this recording? I want someone to know what happened to Lily. Tell me, she was 4, she liked butterflies. She had a stuffed rabbit she called Bun Bun that she'd had since she was a baby. She was afraid of the garbage truck. She would hide behind my legs every Tuesday when it came. She was learning to write her name, and she always did the L backwards. She was a person. She was a whole person, and nobody. After the fire, the paper said, Glen killed his family. His family. Like we were a thing that belonged to him. Even in the story about how he murdered us, we belonged to him. I was crying. I don't cry on calls. I have not cried on a call in 11 years. But I was crying, and Denise was crying, and the Engine 4 crew was standing on an empty lot in South Bakersfield in the middle of the night looking at a concrete foundation with weeds growing through it. You're not his, Karen. You're on the record now. Yours and Lily's. The smoke's bad now. I know. I'm going to try the wall between our rooms. I know it won't work, but I can't just stay here again while she... Go. Try. I heard her get up. I heard her coughing. I heard banging, fist against drywall, I think. Then harder, like she was using something. A lab bass, maybe. The sound was frantic and rhythmic, and then it became just frantic. It won't break. Keep trying, Karen. I can hear her crying. She's awake now. She's calling me. I'm here. She's calling me, and I can't get to her. The banging stopped. I heard Karen sliding down against the wall. I heard her put her mouth close to it, close to the wall between her room and Lily's. Mama's here, baby. Mama's right here. I could hear, faintly, a child crying on the other side. A small sound. The kind of cry a 4-year-old makes when they're not screaming yet, just confused and looking for the person who fixes everything. I know, baby, I know. Close your eyes, okay? Close your eyes and hold Bun Bun. I'm going to sing, okay? I'm going to sing the song. And Karen started singing. Through the wall. Through the smoke. Into a room she couldn't reach. To a child she couldn't hold. She sang, You're my sunshine. She got through one verse and half the chorus before she started coughing too hard to continue. She tried to keep going. She'd get a line out, then cough, then another line. The line was open for all of it. The recording captured all of it. At 40:09 a.m., 22 minutes into the call, the line went dead. Not a click, not a disconnect sound, just silence where there had been a voice. The CAD system logged the call termination as carrier loss. I sat there for a long time. Long enough that 2 more calls came in, and Denise took them because she could see I wasn't functional. Then I did the only thing I could think to do. I started researching. The Bakersfield Californian ran 3 articles about the fire at 1414 Oleander Street. The first, on November 9th, 1987, was the breaking news piece. The second, 2 days later, was a follow-up with details from the fire investigation. The third, a week later, was a small item about the funeral. The facts were these. Glen Robert Merriweather, age 34, set fire to his home at approximately 3 a.m. on November 9th, 1987. His wife Karen Merriweather, age 29, and their daughter Lily Merriweather, age 29, and their daughter Lily Merriweather, age 4, were trapped in upstairs bedrooms. Both died of smoke inhalation. Glen's body was found on the first floor in the living room with a blood alcohol content of 28. The fire investigator determined the origin point was the base of the staircase, where an accelerant, gasoline, had been poured along the steps and walls. The windows on the second floor had been boarded shut from the outside. The investigation was closed as a murder-suicide. The article didn't mention a 911 call. I checked. Karen said she'd called every time. The article said nothing about a call. I pulled our own records. Kern County's 911 system went digital in 1993. Before that, calls were handled through a different system, and the records from the 1980s were partially archived when the county migrated databases in 2004. I put in a request to the Records Division for any logged calls from 1414 Oleander Street. 3 days later, I got the file. There was one 911 call logged from 1414 Oleander on November 9th, 1987 at 3:16 a.m. Duration 41 seconds. The call was answered by a dispatcher named Patricia Rowe. The notes were minimal: female caller, possible fire, difficulty speaking, line lost. No units were dispatched. 41 seconds. Karen had been on the phone for 41 seconds in 1987, and nobody came. I compared timestamps. In 1987, Karen called at 3:16 a.m. and got 41 seconds. In 2025, the call came in at 3:47 a.m. and lasted 22 minutes. The gap was wider. Whatever was letting her reach through, it was stronger now, or she had learned to hold on longer. Or maybe the 41 seconds in 1987 was one of her early calls, and she hadn't yet learned the rhythm of it, the pattern, the protocol, the way to keep a dispatcher on the line long enough to matter. How many times have you called, Karen? I don't know. I don't know anymore. I used to count. I tracked down Patricia Rowe. She retired from dispatch in 2001. She lives in Tehachapi now, in a small house with a lot of cats and a garden that she clearly puts real effort into. I know this because I drove up there on my day off. She didn't want to talk at first. I told her I was a fellow dispatcher and I needed to ask about a call from a long time ago. She let me in. When I said the address, her face did something I don't have a word for. It wasn't surprise. It was closer to the expression of someone who has been waiting a very long time for a specific knock on a specific door, and is relieved and horrified in equal measure that it finally came. You got a call from that house, she said. Yes. From the woman, Karen. Yes. Patricia sat down slowly. She asked me what year it was on the call. I said Karen told me it was 1987. Patricia nodded, and then she told me something that reorganized my entire understanding of what was happening. I got 3 calls from that house, she said. I stared at her. The record shows 1. The record shows 1 because I only logged 1. The first one was in 1991. I was on graveyard. A call came in from an address that I recognized because I'd handled the original 41-second call 4 years earlier. I remembered it because you remember the ones where you feel like you failed. 41 seconds. I didn't get anyone to her. The 1991 call, from an address that had been an empty lot for 4 years. I know how it sounds. I answered it. Same woman. Same fire. Same everything. Except she seemed confused. She kept saying things like, I already called, and why does it always start again? I thought it was a prank. Some sick person who'd researched the fire and was playing a game. I hung up after 2 minutes. I didn't log it. And the third, 1996. Same thing, but longer. She was by 9/6. She knew more. She knew I wasn't going to believe her. She started giving me information about the house, about Glen, about things that happened before the fire. Specific things. I told her I was going to report the call to the police as harassment. And she said, and this is the part I've never been able to get out of my head, she said, you're the 3rd person I've talked to, and none of you can help me, but at least this time you're staying on the line longer. The 3rd person. That's what she said, which means she'd reached someone before me, too. Someone I don't know about. On a system that shouldn't have connected to an address with no phone line, no house, no anything. Patricia told me she hung up on the 1996 call and never got another one. She retired 5 years later. She said she never told anyone because there was nothing to tell that wouldn't sound like she'd lost her mind. She asked me how long my call lasted. I told her 22 minutes. She closed her eyes and did the math. 41 seconds and 87, 2 minutes and 91, 11 minutes and 96, 22 minutes and 2025. She's getting longer each time, or she's learning how to hold on, or whatever connects her to the system is getting wider. She said she'd done it more times than she could count. Then there are calls that went to other dispatchers who never talked about it, or calls that connected but went to empty desks, or calls that the system routed and no one ever heard. We sat in Patricia's kitchen for a while without speaking. 2 dispatchers, decades apart, connected by the same voice, on the same line from the same burning room. Then Patricia said, did she ask what year it was? Yes, eventually. She asked me too. In 96. And when I told her, she went quiet for a long time. Then she said something I wrote down afterward because I couldn't stop thinking about it. Patricia got up and went to another room. She came back with a small notebook, the kind you buy at a gas station. She flipped to a page near the back and read, "I think I'm the smoke. I think when the fire goes out, I'm what's left. And I keep reaching for the phone because that's the last thing I did. But Lily can't reach the phone. Lily doesn't have a phone in her room. So it's only me. And I can hear her every time and I can never get to her. And no one ever comes. And I don't know if I'm asking you to save us or just to remember that we needed saving." Patricia closed the notebook and looked at me. I quit because of that call. Not immediately, but it started the countdown. Because after that, every time I took a call from a woman in danger, I heard Karen underneath it. Every domestic, every fire, every caller who said, I already tried everything. I started hearing her voice under their voices, and I couldn't do the job anymore. I drove back to Bakersfield that night. The drive from Tehachapi is about an hour through the pass, and I spent the entire time thinking about loops and phone lines and what it means when someone who is dead keeps reaching for help through a system designed for the living. When I got home, I did more research. I wanted to find Donna, Karen's sister, the one in Wasco. It took a week of poking through public records, old white pages, databases, and a social media search that eventually turned up a woman named Donna Callis, née Donna Prescott, which matched the maiden name I found in Karen's marriage record, living in Delano, about 30 miles north of Bakersfield. I wrote her a letter, a physical letter. I didn't want to call her. I thought a phone call from a stranger asking about her dead sister might be cruel in a way that a letter, which she could read on her own terms, wouldn't be. I explained who I was. I said I was a dispatcher who had come across the case file from 1987 in the course of reviewing old records. I said I had some questions, if she was willing to talk. She called me 4 days later. Donna Callis is 67 years old. Her voice is steady and clear and has the particular quality of someone who has spent decades managing a grief that never fully resolved. We talked for 2 hours. I'll try to convey the important parts. She confirmed everything Karen told me on the call. Glen's job at the Union Avenue shop. The escalation that started in '84. The 2 times Karen came to Wasco. The officer named Russ who responded to the domestic calls. Donna said his full name was Russ Hernandez, and that she had fantasized about his patrol car going off the Garces Highway overpass more times than was probably healthy. All of that could have been researched, theoretically, by someone committed to building a very elaborate hoax. Domestic violence records, employment histories, responding officer names. It would be difficult but not impossible to assemble. But then I asked about the letter. Karen told me she wrote a letter to you in September of 1987, I said. She said she hid it in a cookbook in the kitchen. She said she didn't know if it survived the fire. Donna went quiet for a long time. How do you know about the letter? She said. It was mentioned in the case materials I was reviewing. No, it wasn't. The letter was never in any case file. The fire marshal never knew about it. The police never knew about it. How do you know it existed? Because I have it. I stopped breathing. I actually stopped breathing. My neighbor, Donna said. Mrs. Gutierrez, who lived next door. After the fire, when they were clearing the debris, she found a cookbook in the backyard. It had been blown out or thrown out, maybe by the pressure, maybe by the hose water, I don't know. The back cover was burned, but the pages inside were mostly intact. She opened it to see whose it was, and found the letter tucked inside. She read it. She brought it to me. What did the letter say? It said what you'd expect it to say. That Glen was going to kill her. That she wanted me to take Lily. That she was sorry she kept going back. That she loved me and she loved Lily. And that if I was reading this letter, she was already gone. Dennett, who have you told about this letter? No one. For 38 years, no one. Mrs. Gutierrez died in 1994. I've never shown it to anyone. Not a lawyer, not a counselor, not who would I show it to? The police, the same people who sent Officer Russ to talk to Glen on the porch and left. It was a closed case. Murder-suicide. Everyone knew what Glen did. The letter didn't change anything. It was Karen's voice. The last thing she wrote. I kept it for me. So here's where I was. A 911 call from an address that has been a vacant lot for 38 years. A woman who identified herself as the murder victim, gave details consistent with the historical record, and also mentioned a letter that only one living person knew about, a person who had never disclosed it to anyone. The hoax theory requires someone who independently knew about the letter in the cookbook. The only person who knew was Donna, and Donna didn't tell anyone. The neighbor who found it died in 1994. You can construct a scenario where someone learned about it secondhand, through some chain I can't trace, but you'd be building a conspiracy of effort for the purpose of calling 911 at 3 a.m. to impersonate a woman who died in a house fire in the 1980s, from a phone line that doesn't exist, at an address with no structure. I don't believe in ghosts. I want to be clear about that. I have no framework for this that I find satisfying, but I have a recording of a 22-minute call, and I have confirmation from a retired dispatcher of 3 previous calls spanning a decade, and I have a detail from the caller that was verified by the only person alive who could verify it, and that person had no knowledge of the call. And I have the song on the recording. You Are My Sunshine, sung through a wall by a mother who couldn't reach her daughter, captured on a digital recording system that shouldn't have been connected to anything at all. 2 weeks after my call with Donna, I went to 1414 Oleander Street. I went in the daytime on my lunch break. It's a lot. That's all it is. There's a chain-link fence around part of it. Weeds. Broken concrete from the old foundation. A telephone pole at the corner of the property, which is notable only because there's a junction box on it that looks like it hasn't been serviced in decades. I stood on the sidewalk and looked at the lot, tried to feel something. I didn't. It was Bakersfield in March. Warm, dry, the sound of someone's swamp cooler running 3 houses down. A normal place. An ordinary absence where a house used to be. But I looked at that junction box on the telephone pole, and I thought about the fact that somewhere in the wiring infrastructure of this city, there is still a cable path associated with a phone number that was assigned to this address in the 1980s. The number was probably decommissioned, recycled, reassigned 10 times over. The physical copper was probably cut, pulled, or left to corrode, but the system remembers. The routing tables, the legacy databases, the layers of telecommunications infrastructure that we built on top of each other for 100 years, they have ghosts in them, not supernatural ghosts, structural ghosts, phantom entries, orphaned routes, numbers that point to addresses, that point to buildings, that point to nothing. And the system never cleaned it up because no one ever does. I wonder if Karen found the crack. The one place where the system was broken in exactly the right way to let a signal through that shouldn't exist. I wonder if the first time she reached for the phone in that burning room, in that repeating night, the call went nowhere. And then 10 years later, or 50 loops later, or 1,000 loops later, some slight degradation in the switching architecture, some abandonment of a verification protocol, some gap between the old analog routing and the new digital overlay. Something opened, and the call went through, and every time it went through a little better. 41 seconds, then minutes, then 22 minutes. And each time the dispatcher on the other end hung up, or the line died, or the fire won, Karen was back at the beginning, but the system remembered a little more each time. The pathway was a little more established. The ghost in the routing table was a little more real. This is not a supernatural theory. This is a structural theory. Infrastructure is haunting. The phone system is a place where the dead can persist, not because of magic, but because the system is old enough and deep enough and poorly maintained enough that something got stuck in it. And I think about what Karen said. I think I'm the smoke. I think she might be right. I think when the fire consumed the house and everything in it, something was encoded into the last act Karen performed, reaching for the phone, dialing 911, the heat, the current, the signal, the desperation, something imprinted. And now it repeats, like a skip in a record, because the medium it's recorded on, the telephone infrastructure, still exists in some residual form. But here's the thing that keeps me up at night. She's getting longer. The calls are getting longer. She's learning. She's adapting. She gives more information each time. She asks about the recording. She recognized that a digital recording system was different from what she expected. She is aware of time passing, even if she's trapped in a single night. If the calls keep getting longer, if she keeps learning, what happens when she has enough time? What happens when the call lasts hours instead of minutes? What happens when she has time to describe everything, name everyone, provide details that can be verified and re-verified and built into a record so comprehensive that someone, some reporter, some cold case investigator, some podcast host with a FOIA obsession pulls the thread? Because here's what I found when I looked deeper into the 1987 case file. The investigation lasted 4 days. 4 days for a double murder. The fire marshal filed his report. The cause of death was confirmed as smoke inhalation. Glen's body was found with the gasoline can, and the case was closed. There was no victim advocate interview with Donna. There was no review of prior 911 calls. There was no follow-up on the boarded windows, which should have indicated premeditation and raised the case from a domestic murder-suicide to something that might have been preventable if the prior reports had been handled differently. Russ Hernandez, the officer who responded to Karen's 2 earlier calls and told her that Glen seemed like a reasonable man, was never questioned about his handling of those calls. He retired from the Bakersfield Police Department in 2003 with a full pension. I looked him up. He's alive. He lives in a gated community in northwest Bakersfield. He has a boat. The system failed Karen Merriweather in 1987. Every layer of it. The police who responded and left. The dispatcher who had 41 seconds and couldn't get help there in time. The fire department that arrived at a fully involved structure. The investigation that closed in 4 days. The newspaper that called them Glen's family, as if they were inventory. And now the system, a different part of it, the part made of copper and fiber and routing tables and legacy code, is the thing allowing her to keep trying. The same infrastructure that connected her to a dispatcher who couldn't save her is now connecting her to dispatchers who can at least hear her. I don't know what to do with this. I filed an internal report about the call, categorized as anomalous routing event. My supervisor, Denise, countersigned it. The recording is in the system. Officially, it's an unexplained technical artifact. A call from a decommissioned address, probably caused by a database error. Content attributable to a very sophisticated prank or a crossed line. Unofficially, Denise and I have talked about it every day since. She pulled the catalogs and found something I missed. The call on March 12th was not the first anomalous contact from that address. There were 3 prior logged events, 2 in 2019 and 1 in 2022, where the system registered an incoming signal from 1414 1-aner that never connected. They showed up as phantom rings. 0-duration call attempts. The system saw something trying to get through and failing. She's been trying more often than anyone knew. She's been trying and the calls have been bouncing. The March 12th call was the first time since at least 2004, when the digital migration happened, that she actually connected. And I think about the other dispatchers, the ones between Patricia in 1996 and me in 2025. The calls Karen said she'd made more times than she could count. Where did those calls go? Were they the phantom rings? Were they calls that connected at 3 a.m. to dispatchers who picked up, heard a woman talking about smoke and fire and dismissed it as a prank because the address came back to an empty lot? Did they hang up on her? Did she count those? Does she remember every single one? I had the recording transcribed. I read the transcript 11 times. On the 11th reading, I noticed something I'd missed. When Karen was telling me about Lily, about the butterflies, the rabbit, the garbage truck, she said something I initially processed as just a mother describing her child. But read in context, it's different. She said she was learning to write her name and she always did the L backwards. Then, about 30 seconds later, when she was talking about the newspaper calling them Glen's family, she said, even in the story about how he murdered us, we belong to him. Murdered us, we belong to him. Murdered us. Not past tense reflecting on a completed event. Not the hypothetical language of someone who thinks they're in danger. She said, murdered us. The kind of phrasing you use when you know the outcome, when you have the outside perspective on your own death, when you can see the whole shape of it. She knows she's dead. She knew during the call. She's not a confused spirit replaying a trauma without understanding. She is a woman who has been fully aware through however many repetitions that she and her daughter died in that house. She knows the fire wins. She knows no one comes. She knows all of it, and she keeps calling. She keeps calling not to be saved. She keeps calling to be recorded. That's what the recording meant to her. When I mentioned it, her voice changed. That was the first moment in the call when I heard something that wasn't fear or exhaustion. It was, and I know how this sounds, it was strategic. She immediately pivoted from describing her situation to providing testimony. Names, dates, details, the letter. She loaded the recording with everything she had, because she understood that if it was being captured, it existed outside the loop. Karen Merriweather is building a case file. She has been building it across decades, across calls, across dispatchers, from inside a burning room that she can never leave. She's using the 911 system, the same system that failed her, as a deposition tool. Every call is a witness statement. Every dispatcher is a notary. Every recording is evidence. Evidence of what? I don't know. The case is closed. Glen is dead. The house is gone. There is no perpetrator to prosecute, no injustice to remedy in any legal sense. The wrong was done, and the people who allowed it to happen through incompetence or indifference are retired or dead. Except Russ Hernandez, who is alive, who has a boat. And I think about what it means that Karen, who knows she's dead, who has apparently accepted that she cannot be rescued, keeps calling, not to escape, not to change the past, but to make sure the record exists. To make sure someone, somewhere, has the full story, not the 4-day investigation, not the 3-paragraph article, the full story. Karen's story, Lily's story, the boarded windows, the 2 prior calls, Officer Russ on the porch nodding and leaving, the letter in the cookbook, the daughter who wrote her L's backward and hid from the garbage truck. I pulled the personnel records for Patricia Rowe's 1987 shift, the original 41-second call. Patricia was the only dispatcher on duty between 2 a.m. and 6 a.m. that night. Minimum staffing. The call came in, lasted 41 seconds, and the notes say, line lost. No dispatch. The shift log shows Patricia took 4 other calls that night, including 2 medical and a traffic accident on Highway 178. She was alone, handling an entire county's emergency calls, and she got 41 seconds of a woman who was already on fire. They gave her 41 seconds, and it wasn't enough. They gave Karen 41 seconds, and it wasn't enough. Now Karen takes what she can get. 2 minutes, 11 minutes, 22 minutes, however long the line holds before the fire wins and the loop resets, and she's getting better at it. I need to tell you one more thing before I finish. The part that I am most reluctant to share, because it moves from the territory of strange technical anomaly with unverifiable claims into something else. 3 weeks after the call on April 2nd, I was on shift. Graveyard. It was around 3:30 a.m. A quiet night. Denise was on the other side of the room. My console rang. I looked at the CAD screen. 1414 Oleander Street. I answered immediately. Karen. Silence. Long silence. Then you remember. I told you. The recording doesn't forget. You listen to it. Many times. Did you find Donna? Yes. She confirmed the letter. Pile